Hmm. Hi everyone. Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to my webinar today. So today we will actually embark a journey to explore the EV sector. So I hope you all had your dinner. If not, you can actually have it while watching this webinar. So just a side note, I'm not really feeling well today, so forgive me if I cough or I sneeze during this course of the webinar. Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to know if everyone can hear me clearly. So if you do, please give me a 1 in the chat so that I know. If not, I can adjust myself accordingly. Yep. Can everyone hear me clearly? Just type a 1 in the chat if you can. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Kinsun. Yeah. Okay. Now let's start. Okay, here are some disclaimer. And actually, all the content here are only for the educational purposes. So please consult your TR or remisier if you wish to have some advice. Here are the table of contents for today. So the first section, we will get into knowing what is EV. And then second, we will deep dive into EV in terms of how it works and what components are needed to build an EV. So the third section will be the EV sector analysis. So how this sector is doing recently. And the fourth section is about getting exposure via CFD. So the fifth is I'll guide you how do you open a premium CFD account, and the sixth section would be the Q&A. Let's start. So first, EV has been a hot topic in the Wall Street, so I want to bring your attention to the EV sector. Now, the first thing is what is considered an EV. So it's actually a vehicle is powered by an electric motor, where it consumes electricity for propulsion. So the main idea of EV is actually to use energy storage, where it's actually a process of storing energy generated from various sources for later use. For example, from natural gas, wind, solar energy, or fossil fuels. So a quick question for everyone. Does all EV actually have emissions, like carbon monoxide? You can actually type in the chat whether it's a yes or no. So if you believe it is, hello? Yes, there's no sound. Can everyone hear me clearly now? I believe I've unmute. So can anyone type in the chat? Can hear me? Okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Can hear me clearly. Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe you can turn up your volume or something. Like okay. Yeah. So can anyone type in the chat whether actually all EV has emissions? It's a yes or a no. You can type in the chat. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lively. Yeah. Yeah. So a quick question: if you think that all EV vehicles have emissions or not? So do you think they have emission, then you put a yes. If you think there's no emission, then you put a no. Yep. Anyone? Have a quick guess. Is a yes or a no? Just a quick one. Yeah. No. Okay, no. Right. Okay. So most of you might think is no. Right. Yes and no. Okay, right. That's a really good answer. Johnny. Okay, I'll call you Johnny. Sorry if I pronounce it wrongly. Okay. Yeah, actually it can be yes or a no, right? So the main thing of EV. So let's see what are the different types of EV. So actually EV, not all EV vehicles do not have emission. Actually, some EV vehicles do have emissions, right? So the first thing is the most common one that we see, which is a battery EV. So it's actually a rechargeable battery inside of the car where you might need to plug a power source to it. So the next one is FCEV, which is a fuel cell electric vehicle. So it's actually powered by electric engine, but it doesn't rely on a battery. It actually runs on a chemical reaction of hydrogen and oxygen from the air. So the only byproduct is actually water. So this one, you do actually need fuel to power the whole car, which is, they call it a FCE. EV. So the next one is a hybrid EV. So hybrid EV has an electric engine, but the energy used to power this engine is still fuel. So you actually do need petrol to power this fuel. So this HEV also actually need to be filled with petrol to power the electric engine. So where the next one, PHEV, is a plug-in hybrid EV, where they provide, there's also a battery inside. So they provide a rechargeable option. So there's two options for you where you can actually use fuel or a battery. So this is actually a combination of both BEV and HEV, because there's more efficient where battery can actually cover a longer distance than HEV. But if further than that, you need fuel, because a battery can only cover a certain distance, where after that you do not have enough battery, then that's where the fuel come in, but to help you cover a longer distance. Okay, so now the newest one is the EREV, which is the extended range EV. So it's actually an enhanced version of the PHEV. This allow people to actually drive longer range. So that's, for example, that's the BMW i3 series. I believe they come up with this extended range EV to allow people to drive a longer distance than the normal PHEV we see in the market. Next one, let's see the difference between the EV and the normal gasoline cars. So the gasoline cars produce more emissions, as we know, and EV can only go for a shorter range as compared to a gasoline car. Gasoline car can actually help us to go for a longer distance as compared to an EV. Okay, but refueling wise, gasoline car actually takes take a lesser time as compared to an EV, because EV may need hours to recharge their battery. I believe 3 to 4 hours, I presume. Yeah, because there are actually a few different kind of EV chargers in the market. There's actually 3 levels, I suppose. Yeah. So depending on which car that you have, and depending on how long you need for different types of vehicle. Okay, so maintenance wise, EV is actually cheaper to be maintained because they normally run on a battery, which the main component is battery, while actually gasoline car need to be serviced more often than an EV. Yeah, once you hit a certain mile. Okay, now let's look at the major players in the EV sector. So we have the leading players, which is BYD and Tesla, and the other small players like BMW, GM, Volkswagen, Mercedes, and all, and Li Auto. Right? Next, let's have a deep dive into the EV sector here. Okay, now the first thing, despite the COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020, it was actually a successful year for EV market and EV supply chain, because the lockdown has affected EV sales negatively, but the policies came out from the government actually related to climate change in some countries actually helped to boost the EV sector for them to stay resilient. As you can see here, since 2020 and 2021, the EV market actually boosted up quite a lot. Yeah. So, for example, there are actually financial initiatives from the government, infrastructure deployment of EV chargers, and because of the reduced battery cost. So we will look into that later on. So EV car sales rise by more than 40% in 2020, where the global car sales have dropped by around 15%. So as you can see here, the global, which is the EV sector, has increased quite a bit as compared to the normal car. So the global ICE means the internal combustion engine, which is the normal car that we refer to that runs on fuel. Okay, so there are actually strategic commitments from major OEM players around the world that actually help to boost this EV sector in 2020 and 2021 too. Okay, so let's say, for example, Volvo plans to have 100% fully electric car sales by 2023, where BMW Groups actually estimates 50% of its delivery will be fully electric by 2030. So as you can see here, quite a lot of estimates actually assume that quite a lot of EV will be sold by 2023 will be electric vehicles. Yeah, slowly they are moving towards this EV instead of like the normal ICE cars that we see on the road. So dealer forecast actually shows that by 2023, EV will be taking around 32% of the global market share for car sales. So 2.5 million in 2020 to 31.1 million in 2033. So this huge growth in market will actually make the supply chain challenging for some companies and a competitive advantage for others. So here, despite electric vehicles are actually mechanically simpler with fewer parts, but the tech of EV actually makes them more challenging to be mass produced because EV actually need a lot of raw materials like all these cobalt, manganese, nickel, and carbon. So the most valued component, as we know, is battery. So only China, Japan, Korea dominates the battery market. So less than 3% of the global demand of battery actually supplied from outside of these three countries, which is the China, Japan, and Korea. So China has around the 93 mega factories producing these batteries as compared to only 4 in the US. Right. So actually producing these batteries need all these key materials, which is this cobalt, manganese, nickel, and carbon. So the main producers of this raw lithium are actually from China, South Africa, Indonesia, Australia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, as you see here. So DRC alone actually produce more than 70% of the world's cobalt. But because of the inconvenient labor condition and poor working environment, which push all the EV manufacturers to look at alternatives, like you can see here. So they are actually looking for alternatives rather than only sourcing from DRC. So other than that, all these few countries that are actually producing all these raw materials. Right. Now, so let's look at EV sector supply chain network. So actually more and more people are actually transitioning to more green energy sources. After all raw materials are being mined and produced, it would be actually sent to all the EV operation charging infrastructure. Okay, so this part is where they manufacture the EV car batteries. So after all the raw materials being mined and produced, it will be sent to China, South Korea, Japan for refinement, processing, cathode cell production before sending it to the EV manufacturer. So on a side note that actually EV battery recycling is also part of the EV supply chain, but it's not as profitable as what we do for metals as of now. So most of the EV production are concentrated in Asia, where there's a sustainability concern of mining practices for more materials. So it makes the whole EV supply chain complex and vulnerable and also costly for the manufacturer. So for automotive company outside of the component continent, it's actually rather harder for them to produce EV because most of the production are in Asia, correct? So when they would need to export to out of the continent, it's actually harder for them. So this is why actually a lot of EV manufacturers are working on new strategies to secure supply and to have a better control over sustainability. So they do it through vertical integration, strategic alliances, local supply base, and innovation in battery chemistry. So all of these, let's say for example, right, we can look at Tesla. So let's say for example, Tesla. So Tesla business model is one of the most vertically integrated supply chain that we have seen in the automotive industry currently. So as Tesla ambition is to accelerate sustainability, which encourages the company to actually build more factories faster to assemble them. So they produce more EVs while trying to make them more affordable. So they build their own charger network. They actually advance their software engineering. They also mine and refine their own lithium and also invest more in battery innovation. So Elon Musk calls it a machine that makes machines. So that's why Tesla actually keep on having to expand their supply chain network in this industry. Yeah, as you can see here. Yeah, they manufacture and they assemble their own, and then that's how they provide. That's how they actually satisfy the demand for the consumers in a way by using all this integration. Now, let's move on into EV sector analysis. With the government prioritizing sustainability, economic development, and expanding consumption, so EV sales are actually expected to rise, where especially the BEV and PHEV are expected to increase around 21% in 2024, hitting 16.7 million, with 70% of it being fully electric. Okay, so drops there are actually drop in battery costs, which will further drive the BEV sales, and the PHEV will also continue to gain market share for the next 2 to 3 years because of the cost effectiveness and the stronger adaptability lah. Okay, so for here, China EV sales has just come under 10 million, where it represents 6 of every 10 EVs sold globally. So the growth rate in China is slowing because of the market saturation in the wealthier region and overall tougher economic conditions. So researchers actually predict China EV share to actually reach 38% of global sales. Yeah. While Europe sales is relatively flat because automakers hold back on their higher volumes before the carbon regulations tightens again in 2025, because subsidy have been cut in this region because this EV market is actually highly dependent on favorable company car taxation schemes for EV. So EV sales is actually expected to only rise by around 8%, which is around 3.4 million. Yeah. Whereas for US market, Ford and General Motors have been actually among the most vocal in saying that the demand for EV has been flattering. But Tesla keeps scoring wins where and other automakers like Hyundai and Thye actually aren't slowing down, because the access to tax credit will be more difficult this year, although it will be more difficult, but those who are actually buying models that qualify for the tax credit will actually get the tax credit at the point of sale. Yeah. Now, let's look in depth on why there are oversupply of battery in 2024. So, installation of solar or batteries are actually not cheap for the past 2 years. So, battery manufacturers actually enjoyed a solid margin for the past 2 years, because they produce more and supply and demand, where supply rose while demand actually remained constant, where prices would actually fall because battery manufacturers increase their production quite a lot. So downstream players like the distributors and installers are facing high inventories, so they might face possible write-off. So this would actually cause that they would have higher financial risk because of declining prices. So this prompted a price war between the distributors and the installer in the second half of last year, 2023. So this would lead to a market consolidation in early 2024 this year. So there are actually smaller manufacturers likely to face negative gross margin, but those large manufacturers, they need to differentiate themselves through innovation or price over quality decision in terms of battery wise. So actually here, let's look at the EV sector in terms of the new opportunities and trends. So 10 years ago, if you want to refill your car, you have to go to the gas station, where there's no other option, correct? Except for gas station. But with the emergence of EVs now, all of that has changed, because there are actually many business with a parking lot will still want to tap into the huge potential of EV charging market. So let's say, for example, shopping malls, convenience stores, restaurants, office buildings. So anywhere that you will actually leave your car for an extended period of time would want to tap into this market, which is EV charging. So the profits doesn't only come from how much kilowatts that the customer charge their vehicles, but it's moreover in terms of how they package their product. So let's say, for example, filling up fuel, you need 10 minutes, right? But for charging EV, you will need around, let's say, 3 to 4 hours or at least 25 minutes because, in terms of how they actually profit themselves is they sell in terms of packaged good. Let's say, for example, they sell their food service or cafe-like experience connected to the EV charging so that they can actually generate the bulk of the profits from that. Yeah. So the next one, which is V2G and V2H. So let me dissect this for this term. So vehicle to grid and vehicle to home are the more advanced tech now, where this actually pivotal in allowing drivers to get the most out of their charging. So optimizing grid network for a large number of vehicles, where how they actually take a lot of the EVs together. So let's say we have 10,000 or 1 million EV together. So how they actually use these EV batteries in the EV car to actually charge the whole, let's say, whole town. So let's say, for example, because at night, as we know that the sun doesn't always come out and the wind doesn't always blow, correct? So where do we get this electricity from? So it can come from our EV cars. So how do we use our EV cars to actually charge our town? Or let's say, for example, there's a blackout. So how do we actually use EV to charge that particular town or charge our home? Yeah. So there's an example, I think online, the different brands, which is Enphase and NewV, which you can check online. So these are the two new brands that are coming out, which allows EV cars to do that. Okay, so the last thing, which is battery management system, where actually a lot of the EV car manufacturers are looking into improving their battery because they would want to reduce the time in terms of charging their battery and in terms of how do they hold more electricity or energy inside the battery so that people can actually use it for an extended period of time, where they can actually drive a longer range and also being able to adapt to different climate across the globe so that they're able to sell that EV to different kind of regions. Yeah. So these are the new opportunities and trends. Okay. So now let's look at the challenges in the EV sector. So there are a few challenges here. So the first and foremost, which is the range anxiety. So let's say if you're using a normal car, you actually don't need to be worried whether you can find a petrol station or not. But if you're driving an EV, you wouldn't know where is the next charging station because our public charging station is not as common as a public petrol station, right? Because on the road now, we are still heavily relying on those ICE cars. Yeah. So the next one is the charging speed, where driver may have problem adjusting to the EV lifestyle because charging EV is taking quite a long time, where it takes hours, which is so now the EV manufacturers are really investing a lot on research in terms of how the battery technology can improve so that this time can, the charging time can be brought down significantly now. Yeah. So next thing is the difficulty in finding a technician. So actually most car owners find it more expensive to service their car in their actual brand. So let's say, for example, I have a Hyundai car. So I find it more expensive to actually bring my Hyundai car to a Hyundai dealer to actually service my car because it might cost more as compared to a qualified independent maintenance and repair shop, right? So I would rather to go to those who are qualified independent repair shop as compared to going to the Hyundai service car center because it would actually cost more for the same quality of service that I'm getting, correct? So that's why in EV industry is actually still considered quite small and they are relatively less trained EV repair technicians. So there are actually even fewer qualified independent shops available for us to choose. So which means that most of the EV car owners will need to rely on their EV dealer for service. Let's say, for example, I have a Tesla EV, I need to go to a Tesla service center. I can't go to any other independent shops where they are also qualified because there are not much EV independent shops outside. Yeah. So fortunately, actually, EV doesn't really need a lot of maintenance as compared to a ICE car. But if the EV component, like for example, the battery inside the car needs replacement, then it would be quite expensive because in this industry, there are not much competition for the components to keep the cost down. So it's still quite costly for EV car. So now let's explore how you can get exposure into the EV sector, which is via CFD. So first and foremost, let me show you what is CFD. So a CFD is actually a derivative product where the value is dependent upon an underlying, for example, stocks, index, commodities, and currencies. So CFD is actually a contractual agreement where the traders gain or lose, which is the difference in price when it opens and closes the contract. So the next thing is there's no ownership of the underlying. So CFD actually only provide you an exposure of the underlying, but you do not own the underlying share. So next is CFD is also an OTC product where it is not listed on any exchanges. You can only trade via brokers, which is through us, which is PhillipCapital. So let's see the CFD relevance to the EV sector. So here, CFD provides you the ability to short, where it allows investors to short specific counters. So let's say you want to short Tesla, yes, we have. You want to short BYD, yes, we have. So I'll show you certain counters what we have in terms of the EV sector. So the next thing is to take action on your view. So this sectors are actually this EV sector actually subject to quite a lot of market volatility depending. So let's say, for example, for Tesla, so one announcement from Elon Musk, can actually move the market. So it can actually be influenced by a few factors also in this market. So government policies, tech advancement or the shift in public perception. So CFD actually provides a flexible platform for investors to respond to these market dynamics and capitalize on short-term price fluctuations. So the last and foremost, which is hedging or speculation. So it can be used as a part of your hedging strategy for some investors or some traders for their exposure to EV equity. So let's say you already have Tesla or BYD shares. So how do you want to hedge? You can actually use CFD to do that. So by taking offsetting positions in CFD. So this can help you to mitigate losses from adverse price movement in your equity holdings. Right. So here are the few CFD counters that we have. So we have Tesla, Li Auto, and BYD. So BYD is in the Hong Kong Exchange and Shenzhen Exchange. Li Auto is Hong Kong and Nasdaq. But Tesla, which is Nasdaq. So other than that, we have the General Motors too in US, Rivian in Nasdaq, NIO, and Xpeng. So these are some of the counters we offer in terms of the EV sector. So let's look at this. So as last quarter of 2023, BYD actually overtook Tesla as the top EV car seller, where BYD actually sold 526K more, while Tesla only sold around 404K of EV cars. So because as BYD has accelerated into the fast lane, it actually has a fresh evidence of just how competitive the EV market has become. And it might be hard for Tesla to actually swerve back as the head of the pack. So let's take this So let's take this news as an example here. So when this news broke out that actually BYD overtook Tesla, correct? There are three possible scenarios here. So I'm trying to link in terms of how you can use a CFD. So depending on which scenario you are in. So let's say, for example, you are an investor or trader in scenario one. So you already have long Tesla in your underlying, which is the shares. So when this news broke out, what can you do? Which is you can use CFD to hedge. So let's say, for example, your view is you are worried that Tesla share price might drop. So you can do hedging by shorting Tesla CFD. Or you can actually long BYD CFD to hedge your position in Tesla shares. So the second scenario is where you long BYD shares, that you have BYD. So let's say you already own BYD shares, you can opt for a leverage where you can actually long BYD CFD to amplify your potential profits. So where the third scenario is where you do not have both, you do not have Tesla or BYD. So if you do not have both, you can opt for trading where you can put in terms of short-term view, where you may think that Tesla price will drop and while the BYD price will rise. So you can put these short-term views into play by shorting Tesla and long BYD, depending whether 1 week a few weeks or 1 month or 2 months, depending on your trading strategy uh, or your plan to actually how to play it out. Okay, so these are the different scenarios that you can actually use CFD as part of your portfolio. Okay, so here, let's say, for example, this is the scenario one where, let's say, the news broke out around this time, December 2023. So you can short Tesla using CFD. So your gains in Tesla CFD can help you to offset your losses in Tesla shares. Let's say, for example, like if you have really underlying Tesla shares. So this is just an example, overall example. Okay, now, so I'll guide you to open a Poem CFD account now. So here, sorry, you can scan this QR code to open an account where it will bring you to this particular website. So you need to click open an account, and then you need to select which type of account that you want. So the most popular, which is Cash Plus account, you click Cash Plus account, and then choose any other facilities you want. So the most important one is when you choose your CFD so that you can trade CFD. So you need to complete and pass the CKA CAR before you can start trading CFD with us. Okay. For existing customers, you can opt into our CFD account where you log into your points account, you go account management, CFD, and then you go online account opening. So after you did that, you need to complete your CKA and risk fact sheet. Okay, now, so how do you fund into your CFD account? The easiest is the direct crediting into CFD account. So you can use Pay Now. So once you use the Pay Now function, you actually need to input your 7-digit trading account number, then space CFD, so that they will know that you are actually crediting into CFD. So you don't need space, sorry, yeah. So you need to put something like that. So for example, your 7-digit, and then you put CFD here, so that our team will know that you are directly crediting into your CFD account. Or you can actually view the tutorial video that we have there, so that you know how you use PayNow to actually credit your funds. Now, here we have some ongoing promo until this month end. So here you can get $88 cash credit when you fund and trade with us. So we can actually scan this QR code here to learn more about it, which I'll put in a while. So I'll explain more about this promo in our next slide. So how does it work is, step one is you fund and maintain. So you need to make a one-time deposit of 5,000 into your CFD account and maintain the asset for 60 days. So step two is you do 8 equity CFD trades. It says that amalgamated trades will be considered as one trade. So which means that what does it mean by amalgamated trades? So there's a difference in buying. Let's say, for example, I buy 8 Tesla in one trade, as versus I buy 8 Tesla in 8 trades. So there's a difference here. So amalgamated means that the first one, which is buying 8 Tesla in one trade. So if you do 8 equity CFD trades, which means that you have to execute 8 different trades, regardless of the quantity in one trade. Okay, so let's say I buy 10 of it, doesn't mean that I have done 10 trades. It just means that you buy 10 quantity in one trade. Okay, so you have to do note the difference. Yeah. So step 3 is you can enjoy the 88 cash credit and stand a chance to win a pre-sim TV. Yeah. So there's actually a bonus here where you trade 1 Singapore equity CFD, you can actually get an additional chance to win the grand lucky draw, which is the pre-sim TV that I'm showing you just now. Yeah, so this is just a bonus stuff. So you guys can actually have a look this promo. Now, here is our Q&A session. Yeah. Okay, you have any question? Let me have a look. Okay. Yeah. So what is the EV second-hand market like? If second-hand EV cars have degraded battery, will that accelerate car depreciation? Yes. Okay. So good question. So the first thing, EV secondhand market. So in terms of EV secondhand market, that's actually actually a very, very niche market because most people would not opt to buy a EV secondhand unless it's actually for purposes. Because EV secondhand wise, the most and foremost, yes, which is the battery wise. Because when you buy from a secondhand market, you wouldn't know whether the EV would have a proper battery unless you really send for a servicing with at the car dealer. So in terms of the market in secondhand wise, it's not exactly a really bright prospect, I would say. So it's just generally whether people will want to get a tax credit, because I believe that tax credit when you buy a second hand, you might not be eligible because most of the tax credit is actually eligible for first first hand car buyers for EV. Yeah. So in terms of degraded batteries wise, yes. So the EV car would be much cheaper if you have degraded batteries. So I wouldn't advise you to actually buy second-hand EV. Yeah, because of the battery, and you wouldn't know unless you send for inspection or anything. Yeah. So there's a reason why maybe they might sell the EV to a second-hand buyer, but depending lah. So unless if the person that you know actually owns the EV, take takes care of the EV itself quite nicely, and you feel comfortable around it, then yeah, you can just buy. So are there any other questions? Okay, so if there are not much questions, thank you everyone for today. So if any other questions, you can send an email in, or you can actually call our CID dealing desk or visit our Poem's website for more information. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.